Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Today is a little different from our usual lessons. This is the beginning of something new on the channel. From now on, we'll be sharing long-form story time episodes. These stories are designed to help you practice your English in a calm, natural way. No pressure, no exercises, no stopping and starting. Just listening, relaxing, and letting the language flow. Each story will be gentle, unhurried, and easy to follow. You can listen while you rest, while you study, or while you simply enjoy a quiet moment. And I won't be doing this alone. I'd like to introduce Archie. Archie will be our storyteller. He'll be narrating these long stories for us, and I'll be here listening with you. I'll hand things over to Archie. Archie, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Marcy. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is your time to slow down and listen. There's nothing you need to do. Let the story move at its own pace, and if you miss something, that's perfectly fine. So take a comfortable breath, and when you're ready, let's begin. Today, we're going to explore the incredible story of Apple, one of the most famous companies in the world. From a small garage in California to becoming the most valuable company on earth, this is a journey filled with dreams, failures, and amazing comebacks. So let's begin. Part 1. The Rise and Fall, from Garage to Glory and Losing It All. Hello and welcome to the story of Apple. You know this company, right? Everyone does. Apple makes the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac computer. But do you know how it all started? This is not just a business story. This is a story about dreams, about failure, and about never giving up. This is a story that will inspire you. Our story begins in California in the 1970s. Let me introduce you to two young men. The first one is Steve Jobs. Steve was different from other people. He had big dreams. He wanted to change the world. He believed that technology could make life better for everyone. This second young man is Steve Wozniak. People called him Woz. Woz was a genius with electronics. He could build almost anything. He was shy and quiet, very different from Steve Jobs. But they became friends because they both loved technology. They both believed computers were the future. In the 1970s, computers were very different from today. They were huge machines. They filled entire rooms. They cost millions of dollars. Only big companies and universities had computers. Normal people could never own one. Computers seemed like something from science fiction, not something for everyday life. But Steve Jobs asked a simple question. Why not? Why couldn't everyone have a computer at home? Why should only big institutions have this power? This question seemed crazy to most people, but Jobs was serious. He believed computers should belong to everyone, not just experts and corporations. Woz thought about this question, and he had an idea. He started building something in his spare time. He worked at Hewlett-Packard during the day, but at night, he worked on his own project. He built a small computer. It was simple, but it worked. He was just doing it for fun, as a hobby. He showed it to Steve Jobs. Jobs looked at it and his eyes lit up. He saw something special. He didn't just see a hobby project. He saw a business opportunity. He saw the future. He said, "We can sell this. We can start a company." Woz wasn't sure. He had a good job. He had a steady salary. Why take risks? But Jobs kept pushing. Jobs was persuasive. He painted a picture of what they could achieve together. He talked about changing the world, about putting computers in people's homes. Finally, Woz agreed, but they had a problem. They needed money to start. They didn't have rich parents. They didn't have investors. They had to find another way. Jobs sold his Volkswagen van. Woz sold his scientific calculator. They got about $1,300. That was all they had. It wasn't much, but it was enough to begin. They decided to work in Jobs' parents' garage in Los Altos, California. The garage was small and hot in the summer, but it was free, and it gave them a place to build their dreams. They worked day and night. They built computers by hand, one by one. Jobs handled the business side. He talked to potential customers. He designed the look of the product. Woz handled the engineering. He soldered the circuits. He wrote the software. Together, they were a perfect team. Their first computer was called the Apple I, or Apple I. It was just a wooden box with electronics inside. It didn't even have a keyboard or a screen. You had to buy those separately. It doesn't sound very impressive, right? But remember, this was 1976. The idea of a personal computer you could buy and own was revolutionary. They needed to find customers. Jobs knew someone who owned a local electronics store called the Byte Shop. Jobs walked in with the Apple I and demonstrated it. The owner, Paul Terrell, looked at it carefully. He thought for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "I'll buy 50 of them, but I want them fully assembled and ready to use." Jobs and Woz were excited, but also nervous. They had to build 50 computers quickly. They borrowed more money from friends and family. They bought components. Jobs' parents' garage became a small factory. Jobs' sister helped. Friends helped. They worked non-stop for weeks, and they did it. They delivered 50 computers. This was April 1976. Apple Computer Company was officially born. They made some money from the Apple I, but both Jobs and Woz knew they could do better. The Apple I was just the beginning, just a proof of concept. They started working on a better computer. They called it the Apple II. This time, they wanted to make something truly special, something anyone could use, not just electronics hobbyists. The Apple II was different from anything else on the market. It had a beautiful plastic case designed by Jobs. It had color graphics, which was amazing for that time. It had a keyboard built in. You could connect it to your regular TV. You could use it right out of the box. No technical knowledge required. It was friendly. It was inviting. It made computers feel accessible. The Apple II came out in 1977, and it changed everything. This wasn't just a product for tech enthusiasts anymore. Schools started buying them for students. Parents bought them for their children to learn programming. Small businesses bought them for bookkeeping. The Apple II made computers friendly. It made computers fun. Suddenly, computers weren't just for scientists anymore. They were for everyone. Apple grew very fast. Sales doubled, then doubled again. The company hired more employees. They moved out of the garage into a real office. In just a few years, Apple went from two guys in a garage to a real corporation with hundreds of employees. Jobs and Wozniak became millionaires before they turned 30. Success came fast. In 1980, Apple sold shares to the public. This is called an initial public offering, or IPO. It means anyone could buy a piece of the company on the stock market. On the first day, the company was worth $1.2 billion. Steve Jobs was on magazine covers. People called him a genius. People called him the future of technology. Everyone talked about the computer revolution. Two guys from a garage had changed the world. But Steve Jobs was not satisfied. Success wasn't enough for him. He wanted to do something even better. He had a new dream. He wanted to create the perfect computer. A computer so easy that your grandmother could use it. A computer so beautiful that you'd want it in your living room. He called this dream the Macintosh. In 1979, Jobs visited a research center called Xerox PARC. Xerox had invited him to see their latest research. There, he saw something that blew his mind. He saw computers with a graphical user interface. This means you could see pictures and icons on the screen. You could use a mouse to point and click. You didn't need to type complicated commands. You just pointed at what you wanted and clicked. It was intuitive. It was visual. Jobs watched this demonstration, and his mind exploded with ideas. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He thought, this is the future. This is what people need. Why isn't Xerox selling this? Xerox didn't understand what they had, but Jobs did. He saw that this technology could change everything. He decided Apple would bring this to the world. He went back to Apple and gathered a team of the best engineers and designers. He told them, "We're going to build a computer for the rest of us. Not for engineers, not for experts, for normal people, for artists, for teachers, for students, for anyone who wants to create." The team worked incredibly hard. Jobs pushed them to make everything perfect. Every detail mattered. The fonts, the icons, the sound it made when you turned it on. Everything had to be just right. Jobs was very demanding, sometimes too demanding. He would look at designs and say, "This is garbage, start over." He would reject work that took weeks to create. He wanted perfection, and he wouldn't settle for less. This made him difficult to work with. Some people respected his vision. Other people found him impossible. But everyone agreed he cared deeply about making great products. In January 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh. But first, they needed to introduce it to the world in a memorable way. They created a commercial for the Super Bowl. This commercial was directed by Ridley Scott, who made the movie Blade Runner. The commercial showed people breaking free from control. It was dramatic. It was bold. It cost $1.5 million, which was huge for a TV ad. Some people at Apple thought it was too risky. Let the commercial aired during the Super Bowl, and it worked. Everyone talked about it. The next day, people at work discussed it. Newspapers wrote articles about it. Nobody had seen anything like it, and everyone wanted to see this new computer that Apple was making. The commercial didn't even show the product clearly, but it didn't matter. It created curiosity. It created excitement. The Macintosh itself was beautiful. It had a friendly design with a small screen and a compact body. When you turned it on, it showed a happy face icon and made a pleasant sound. It was the first affordable computer with a graphical user interface and a mouse. You could draw, write, and create without knowing any programming. Artists loved it. Schools loved it. The launch was a huge success. Steve Jobs stood on stage and showed it to the world. He pulled it out of a bag, and it said hello to the audience. It was a magical moment. He was at the top of his game. He was a hero. But success didn't last long. After the excitement of the launch wore off, reality set in. After a few months, Macintosh sales slowed down. The computer was good, but it had problems. It was expensive, costing about $2,500. It didn't have much memory. It didn't have a hard drive. It couldn't run much software because developers hadn't made many programs for it yet. Big companies preferred IBM computers. The Mac was revolutionary, but it wasn't practical enough for many businesses. Apple started having problems. Sales targets were missed. The company spent a lot of money on development and marketing, but the Mac wasn't selling as well as hoped. Investors became nervous. The board of directors started asking tough questions, and Steve Jobs started having problems too, not just with the product, but with people. Jobs was difficult to work with. This had always been true, but now it became a real problem. He wanted everything to be perfect. He would reject work that wasn't exactly what he wanted. He would criticize his employees harshly, sometimes in front of others. He would call their work terrible. Many people respected his vision and his passion, but many people also found him hard to work with. Some employees left the company because of him. The Apple board of directors became worried. They had hired a professional CEO named John Scully to help run the company. Scully came from Pepsi, where he was very successful. Jobs himself had recruited Scully with a famous question. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? Scully joined Apple. He knew business, he knew marketing, but he didn't always agree with Jobs. The tension between Jobs and Scully grew. Jobs wanted to keep innovating, keep taking risks, keep pushing boundaries. Scully wanted to focus on profits and stability. He wanted to make products that would sell, not just products that were revolutionary. They fought about the direction of the company. They fought about strategy. They fought about priorities. The board watched this conflict and knew they had to do something. The board had to make a choice. Who should lead Apple? The young dreamer who started the company but was difficult and risky? Or the experienced businessman who could deliver steady growth? In 1985, they made their decision, and the decision shocked the world. The board sided with Scully. They voted to remove Steve Jobs from his management position. Steve Jobs was pushed out of his own company. The company he started in his garage didn't want him anymore. He was only 30 years old. He felt betrayed. He felt crushed. He had given everything to Apple. He had sacrificed relationships. He had worked 18-hour days. And now Apple was pushing him away. Jobs felt like someone took his child from him. He left the company. He didn't just leave his job. He left his dream. He left his identity. Apple continued without Steve Jobs. The company kept making computers. They hired new engineers. They created new products. But something was missing. The passion was gone. The magic was gone. The company made many different products. They made printers. They made cameras. They made different types of computers. But nothing felt special. Nothing felt revolutionary. It felt like Apple was just another computer company now. Other companies started doing better. Microsoft created Windows, which copied many of Mac's ideas. Windows wasn't as elegant as the Mac system, but it ran on cheaper computers. More companies bought Windows computers because they cost less. Apple's market share started shrinking. In 1985, Apple had a good portion of the personal computer market. By 1995, it had less than 5%. Year after year, Apple lost ground. The company tried different strategies. They licensed their operating system to other companies. They made cheaper computers. They made more expensive computers. They tried partnerships. They hired different CEOs. But nothing worked. Each new leader promised to turn things around, but the decline continued. By the mid-1990s, Apple was in serious trouble. The company was losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Some financial analysts said Apple would go bankrupt within a year. Magazines wrote articles asking, "Can Apple survive?" Employees were worried about their jobs. Customers were abandoning the platform. Developers stopped making software for Mac because there weren't enough users. It was a downward spiral. The company that had started the personal computer revolution was now failing. Where was the innovation? Where was the magic? Where was the vision? Meanwhile, Steve Jobs was doing other things. He started a new computer company called Next. The company made high-end computers for universities and businesses. They were beautiful and powerful, but very expensive. Next wasn't a huge commercial success, but it taught Jobs valuable lessons. He also bought a small animation studio from George Lucas. This studio was called Pixar. At first, nobody thought much of it. But Pixar would later create Toy Story, the first feature-length computer-animated film. It was a massive hit. Jobs learned many lessons during these wilderness years. He learned from his mistakes at Apple. He learned that vision alone isn't enough. You also need to execute well. You need to work with people, not against them. He learned about patience. He learned about humility. He grew as a leader. And during all this time, he watched Apple struggle from the outside. Part of him probably felt vindicated, but part of him also felt sad. That was still his company. Even if they didn't want him, Apple kept struggling. By 1996, the company was desperate. They needed new technology. They needed a modern operating system. They needed new ideas. They needed fresh leadership. And then someone at Apple had an idea. Someone said, "What if we bring Steve Jobs back?" At first, it seemed crazy. Jobs had been gone for more than 10 years. There was bad blood. Would he even want to come back? Would it work? But Apple had no choice. They were running out of options. They were running out of time. Steve Jobs, the man who started Apple in a garage, the man who was pushed out of his own company, is about to return. Apple is dying. The company has maybe a year left before bankruptcy. Can he save it? Can someone really get a second chance? Can you come back from total failure? What happens next is one of the greatest comeback stories in business history. Part 2. The Comeback. The Return of a Genius. It's 1997. Apple is in terrible shape. The company is losing money every month. Computer stores don't want to sell Apple products anymore. Customers are leaving. Employees are worried. Everyone is asking the same question. Will Apple survive? The company needs a miracle. And sometimes, miracles happen. Apple decides to buy Next, the computer company that Steve Jobs started. after he left Apple. This means Jobs will come back to Apple. But he doesn't come back as CEO, not yet. He comes back as an advisor. He's careful. He's not sure if he wants to fully commit, but when he sees the situation, he knows he has to take control. By September 1997, Jobs becomes interim CEO. Interim means temporary, but nothing about what Jobs did was temporary. Jobs walks into Apple and looks around. He sees chaos. The company is making too many products. There are 15 different types of Macintosh computers. There are printers, cameras, and random gadgets. Jobs asked the team, which products are the best? Nobody can give him a clear answer. So Jobs makes a radical decision. He cancels almost everything. He cuts 70% of Apple's products. People think he's crazy, but Jobs knows what he's doing. He draws a simple chart with 4 boxes. 2 boxes for consumers, 2 for professionals. 1 for laptops, 1 for desktop computers. That's it. 4 main products. Jobs says, we're going to make fewer things, but we're going to make them insanely great. This takes courage, but Jobs believes in simplicity. Jobs knows Apple needs to change its image too. People think Apple is dying. They think Apple is for old designers and teachers. Jobs needs to make Apple cool again. He works with an advertising agency. Together, they create a campaign called Think Different. Not Think Differently, which is grammatically correct, but Think Different. It's bold. It's rebellious, just like Apple. The Think Different campaign shows black and white photos of famous people. Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, Bob Dylan. These are people who changed the world, people who broke the rules. The message is clear. Apple is for creative people. Apple is for people who want to make a difference. The campaign doesn't even show computers. It shows a feeling, an idea, and it works. People start paying attention to Apple again. But Jobs knows advertising isn't enough. Apple needs a great product. In 1998, Apple launches the iMac, and this computer is different from anything else on the market. First, look at the colors. It comes in bright, translucent blue. You can see through the plastic. It looks like candy. Other computers are beige and boring. The iMac is fun. It's playful. Second, it's all in one. The computer and the screen are together. No messy cables. Just plug it in and start using it. The iMac is a huge hit. People who haven't bought a computer in years suddenly want one. They want it because it's beautiful. They want it because it's simple. Apple sells millions of iMacs. The company becomes profitable again. Steve Jobs proved something important. He proved that design matters. He proved that people want technology to be both powerful and beautiful. But Jobs isn't done. He has his eyes on a new industry, music. In 2001, people are downloading music illegally from the internet. The music industry is panicking. CDs are dying. There are some digital music players on the market, but they're all terrible. They're ugly, they're complicated. They can only hold a few songs. Jobs sees an opportunity. Apple creates the iPod. It's a small white device that fits in your pocket. But here's the magic. It can hold 1,000 songs. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Everywhere you go, you have your entire music library. The iPod has a simple wheel that you spin with your thumb. It's intuitive. It's satisfying to use. And those white earbuds, they become iconic. When you see someone with white earbuds, you know they have an iPod. The iPod sells well, but Jobs wants more. In 2003, Apple launches the iTunes Store. Now you can buy songs legally and easily. Each song costs 99 cents. You can buy just the songs you like. You don't have to buy the whole album. The music industry is skeptical at first, but Jobs convinces them. He saves the music industry while building Apple's music empire. Suddenly, Apple isn't just a computer company. It's a music company too. Apple is doing great. Jobs is being celebrated as a genius again. But he has one more revolutionary idea, one more product that will change everything. And this product is something nobody expects. Jobs stands on stage in January 2007. He says, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." The audience laughs. They think he's joking. Apple making a phone? That sounds crazy. But Jobs is serious. Jobs explains that most smartphones are terrible. They have tiny keyboards. They have complicated menus. They're hard to use. He says Apple is going to make three products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet device. Then he pauses. He says, "Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone." The iPhone is unlike anything anyone has seen before. It has no keyboard, just a big glass screen. You touch the screen with your fingers. You can swipe, pinch, and tap. It feels like magic. You can listen to music, make calls, send messages, browse the internet, all on the same device. And it works beautifully. Jobs shows how to scroll through contacts, how to zoom into photos, how to check email. The audience is amazed. Not everyone believes in the iPhone at first. Some experts say it's too expensive. Some say people want keyboards. Some say it will fail. But when the iPhone goes on sale in June 2007, people wait in line for hours. Some people wait for days. They camp outside Apple stores. They want to be the first to own an iPhone. And when they get it, they love it. The iPhone changes everything. It changes how we communicate. It changes how we work. It changes how we spend our free time. Before the iPhone, phones were just for calling people. After the iPhone, phones become our cameras, our maps, our music players, our connection to the world. Other companies try to copy it. Soon, everyone is making touchscreen phones. But Apple started it all. In 2008, Apple opens the App Store. This is genius. The App Store lets anyone create programs for the iPhone. Developers around the world start making apps, games, productivity tools, social media apps, educational apps. There are apps for everything. Some apps are free. Some cost money. Apple takes a small percentage of sales. This creates a whole new economy. People create businesses just by making apps. The iPhone keeps getting better. Every year, a new version comes out. Faster, thinner, better cameras. And millions of people buy the new one. The iPhone becomes a cultural phenomenon. It's not just a product, it's part of people's identity. People wait for Apple's announcements every year. What will they show next? In 2010, Jobs introduces another new product. He calls it the iPad. It's a tablet computer, bigger than a phone, smaller than a laptop. Again, some people are skeptical. They call it just a big iPhone. But again, they're wrong. The iPad is perfect for reading, for watching videos, for playing games. It's great for children. It's great for grandparents. It's great for artists who want to draw. Schools start buying iPads for students. The iPad creates another new category of devices. Apple is now the most valuable technology company in the world. Steve Jobs brought the company back from the edge of death. He created products that people love. He changed multiple industries. He proved that great design and great technology can work together. He became more than a CEO. He became a legend. But there's a sadness to this story. In 2004, Steve Jobs learned he had cancer. He fought it for years. He kept working. He kept creating. But by 2011, he was very weak. In August 2011, he resigned as CEO. He gave the position to Tim Cook, someone he trusted deeply. And on October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs died. He was only 56 years old. The world mourned. People left flowers and apples at Apple stores around the world. They wrote messages. They shared stories about how Apple products changed their lives. Steve Jobs had touched millions of people. He showed that one person with a vision really can change the world. He came back from failure. He turned Apple from a dying company into the most valuable company on earth. His story is proof that it's never too late for a comeback. But the story doesn't end here. What happens to a company when its visionary leader is gone? Can Apple continue to innovate? Can it stay successful? Part 3. The legacy continues. Apple after Jobs. When Steve Jobs died, many people were worried about Apple. They asked, who can replace Steve Jobs? Nobody can fill those shoes. Jobs was more than a CEO. He was the heart and soul of Apple. He made all the important decisions. He pushed everyone to do their best work. Without him, would Apple lose its magic? These were real concerns. Tim Cook became the new CEO. Cook was very different from Jobs. Jobs was dramatic and emotional. He would shout at people. He would reject products that weren't perfect. Cook is calm and quiet. He's organized and methodical. He doesn't give fiery speeches. He doesn't create drama. Some people wondered if Cook had what it takes to lead Apple. But Tim Cook proved the doubters wrong. He didn't try to be Steve Jobs. He became his own kind of leader. Cook is brilliant at operations. This means he's excellent at managing how products get made and delivered. Under Cook, Apple became even more profitable. The company got bigger and stronger. Cook showed that you don't need to be flashy to be effective. Cook also brought his own values to Apple. He spoke openly about issues that mattered to him. He talked about privacy, about equality, about the environment. He made Apple the first major company to run entirely on renewable energy. He made Apple's CEO salary transparent. He came out as gay, becoming the first openly gay CEO of a major company. He showed that business leaders can have principles. Apple continued to innovate under Tim Cook. In 2015, Apple launched the Apple Watch. This was the first major new product category since the iPad. The Apple Watch is a small computer you wear on your wrist. It tells time, of course, but it does so much more. It tracks your fitness. It monitors your heart rate. It can detect if you fall. It can even detect irregular heartbeats and alert you to see a doctor. The Apple Watch has literally saved lives by warning people about health problems. At first, some people said, "Why do I need a watch that costs hundreds of dollars?" But millions of people found value in it. Athletes use it to track workouts. Busy professionals use it to stay connected without checking their phone constantly. Older adults use it for health monitoring. The Apple Watch became the best-selling watch in the world. Not just the best-selling smartwatch, the best-selling watch, period. Then came AirPods. These are wireless earbuds. They look simple. Two small white sticks that go in your ears. When Apple announced them in 2016, people made fun of them. They said, "They look weird. People will lose them." But Apple made them incredibly easy to use. You take them out of the case, they connect automatically. You put them in your ears, the music plays. You take one out, the music pauses. Simple, magical. AirPods became hugely popular. You see them everywhere. In the gym, on the subway, in coffee shops. Those white earbuds became a status symbol, just like the original iPod earbuds. People even make jokes about AirPods in movies and TV shows. They became part of culture, and Apple made billions of dollars from them. Sometimes, the simplest ideas are the best. Apple also grew its services business. What does this mean? Services are things you pay for regularly, not just once. Apple Music gives you access to millions of songs for a monthly fee. Apple TV Plus shows you original movies and TV shows. iCloud stores your photos and files in the cloud. Apple News, Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus. All these services bring in steady income every month. This was smart business strategy. iPhones are great, but people only buy a new iPhone every few years. Services provide income every single month. By 2024, Apple's services business is worth over $100 billion per year. That's bigger than most companies' entire revenue. Tim Cook built a new foundation for Apple's success. But perhaps the most impressive innovation came in 2020. Apple announced it would stop using Intel processors in Mac computers. This was a huge decision. Intel had provided the chips for Macs for 15 years, but Apple wanted more control. They wanted better performance, so they decided to design their own chips. They called them Apple Silicon. The first one was called the M1 chip. Many experts were skeptical. Designing processors is incredibly difficult. Companies spend decades perfecting this skill. Could Apple really do better than Intel? The answer was yes. The M1 chip was faster than Intel chips. It used less power, which means longer battery life. MacBooks with M1 could run all day without charging. They were silent because they didn't need loud fans. And they could run both Mac apps and iPhone apps. The M1 was a revolution. Apple kept improving. They made the M2 chip, then M3, then M4. Each one was better than the last. The MacBook Air, which used to be Apple's basic laptop, became incredibly powerful. The MacBook Pro became a beast for professionals. Video editors, music producers, software developers all love the new Macs. Apple proved once again that control over both hardware and software leads to better products. Apple also faced new challenges. Privacy became a major issue. Other tech companies make money by collecting your data and selling ads. Apple decided to take a different approach. They made privacy a feature. They created app tracking transparency, which lets you control which apps can track you across other apps. They showed privacy labels in the App Store so you know what data apps collect. Their slogan was, "What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone." This made some companies angry, especially Facebook. Facebook's business depends on tracking people. But Apple stood firm. Tim Cook said privacy is a fundamental human right. This cost Apple some business partnerships, but it built trust with customers. People knew Apple was protecting them. Environmental responsibility became another priority. Apple committed to becoming carbon neutral across its entire business by 2030. They started using recycled materials in their products. They created a robot named Daisy that can take apart iPhones and recover valuable materials. They stopped including chargers and earbuds in iPhone boxes, which reduced waste and shipping emissions. Some people complained about this, but Apple said it was necessary for the environment. Competition grew fiercer. Samsung, Google, Huawei, and others all made excellent smartphones. Android phones offered more variety and often cost less. But Apple maintained its position by focusing on the ecosystem. Once you have an iPhone, you might want an Apple Watch, then maybe AirPods, then maybe a Mac. Everything works together seamlessly. Your messages sync across devices. Your photos appear everywhere. Your music follows you. This ecosystem keeps people loyal to Apple. In 2023, Apple launched the Vision Pro, a mixed reality headset. This device combines virtual reality and augmented reality. You wear it like ski goggles, and it shows you digital content mixed with the real world. You can watch a movie on a giant virtual screen. You can work with multiple virtual displays. You can FaceTime with someone and see their digital avatar. The Vision Pro is expensive, starting at $3,500. It's not for everyone yet, but it represents Apple's bet on the future of computing. Today, Apple is the most valuable company in the world. The company is worth over $3 trillion. More than 2 billion people use Apple devices. There are Apple stores in major cities around the world. These stores aren't just shops. They're community spaces. You can take classes, get support, try new products. They're beautiful, with glass staircases and wooden tables. Just like Apple products, the stores focus on experience. Apple employs over 160,000 people worldwide. The company supports millions more through the App Store ecosystem. Developers have earned over $400 billion by creating apps. Apple's supply chain touches every continent. The company has enormous influence on technology, on design, on culture. But success brings responsibility. Apple faces criticism too. Some say their products are too expensive. Some say they make it hard to repair devices. Some governments say Apple has too much power over the App Store. Labor rights groups watch Apple's supply chain carefully. Environmental activists push Apple to do more. These are valid concerns. No company is perfect, yet Apple continues to evolve. The company that started in a garage now shapes how billions of people live. From how we communicate to how we work, from how we listen to music to how we think about privacy. Apple's influence is everywhere. So what did we learn from Apple's story? First, we learned that anyone can start something great. Jobs and Wozniak were just two friends with an idea. They didn't have millions of dollars. They didn't have fancy offices. They had passion and they had vision. That was enough to start. Second, we learned that failure is not the end. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Imagine creating a company and then being pushed out. Most people would give up. But Jobs didn't give up. He learned, he grew, he came back stronger. His story teaches us that setbacks can lead to comebacks. Third, we learned that simplicity is powerful. Apple's greatest products are simple. The iPhone, the iPod, the iMac. They're easy to understand and easy to use. In a complex world, simplicity stands out. Don't try to do everything. Do a few things excellently. Fourth, we learn that design matters. Apple proved that technology doesn't have to be ugly or complicated. It can be beautiful. It can be joyful. People will pay more for products that are well designed. Quality is worth it. Fifth, we learn that values matter in business. Tim Cook showed that companies can care about more than just profit. They can care about privacy, about the environment, about equality. When companies have values, customers trust them more. And finally, we learned that great companies outlive their founders. Steve Jobs was irreplaceable, but Apple found a way to continue without him. They honored his vision while moving forward. They proved that while individuals matter, institutions can endure. The Apple story is still being written. What will the next chapter be? Will the Vision Pro change how we use computers? Will Apple create something completely new? Will they solve problems we don't even know we have yet? We don't know, but we know they will keep thinking different. From a garage in California to the most valuable company on earth, from two young dreamers to billions of customers worldwide, from nearly going bankrupt to having more cash than most countries. This is the Apple story, a story of innovation, of perseverance, of vision. Thank you for listening to this journey. Remember, if two friends in a garage can change the world, so can you. Your ideas matter. Your dreams are valid. Start small, think big, and never give up. That's the real lesson from Apple's story. Thank you, and keep thinking different.